Hey, welcome in. This is Kyle is Wonderful here with the flagship weekly podcast, the Wonderful Wrestling Podcast from July 26, 2022. And this is the podcast where we take stock of everything that's happened this week. We pick out our five, or my top five favorite matches of the week, my must sees, the ones that you got to go out of your way to watch if you didn't. And then we'll preview next week. So we'll also touch on any news and happenings that happen every week. And boy, do we got a lot to talk about this time. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Since I've been doing these on Fridays earlier, sometimes even before noon hits, as the weekly podcast every Friday, I've been missing out on some big news every single Friday after that. So it seems as though that's when WWE wants to release all their biggest news. And the reason for that is that the stock market closes for the weekend. So it can release the news around 4 p.m. on Fridays, and that doesn't have an immediate effect on the stock market. So that's why I keep missing news on these podcasts. But let's just get right into it. I'm sure everyone's heard by now, but Vince McMahon has retired at the age of 77 after 40 plus years. Vince McMahon is retired from all activities in WWE. He's been forced to give up his stock, which he owned about 60, 70, 80% of the stock still. So that looks like it's going to be taken up. This is a mix. This isn't just, oh, I want to retire. I want to go to the Bahamas and live out the rest of my life. No, this is you were caught with $14 million in NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. You had people that you were giving doubling their raise once they gave you did what you wanted in a in a bad way. So Vince McMahon's gone. He is no longer. He had already been suspended as CEO. So Stephanie McMahon, Vince McMahon's daughter, was the interim CEO. She'll now take over as co-CEO going forward with Nick Khan. Now, if you've been following along on these within my podcast, you know that I think Nick Khan's suspect number one when it comes to the whistleblower here. But it always could have something to do with Triple H and Stephanie as well. Triple H got his kind of legacy torn in half, all because they decided to put his NXT show up against, which is at the end of the day a developmental show. They tried to put it on live TV on the net on regular TV instead of the WWE network. They changed it to 2 hours, and it had to go directly head to head with AEW. They were never going to win that battle. Triple H had to take the blame, had his legacy ruined, spat on, thrown in the garbage, buried. And as much as Stephanie McMahon loves her dad, I'm sure she loves her husband the same. And just to see one side buried, the other side that hard, probably put Stephanie in a corner, and she had to choose her husband for her three. I don't know if they have 3 or 4 daughters, but it's just something you kind of have to do if you know what I'm saying. When a parent is being like that, and you already planned ahead your entire rest of your life with your spouse and your children, sometimes you just have to cut off your parents. So that might be also a possibility. There's always a possibility Shane was involved as too. But even though I kind of went off on maybe Shane and the whole lockbox thing could have been a thing, now there's reports coming out that Stephanie and Shane do not have any close relationship whatsoever. So doesn't look like that's the case. It could be a case of Stephanie and Nick Khan working together, and that's why they're now co-CEOs. But in the meantime, all that news dropped on Friday before SmackDown. So it looked like SmackDown was going to be written and produced and directed by Bruce Pritchard, which is the Vince McMahon right hand man. Bruce Pritchard doesn't have any like really low. His loyalty is all to Vince McMahon, not really Stephanie and Triple H and Nick Khan. So he was pretty much removed by the time we got the Raw on Monday, and by the time we got the Raw before Raw started, Triple H was announced as the new head of creative. He also was announced Friday as the um, executive vice president of talent relations. So now Triple H is not only writing and writing and producing Raw and SmackDown each week. He's also the go-between between management and the talent, which management is now held by Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon. So, and then Triple H as well. So Triple H has now had to put 2 hats on and run 3 different things at once. And I definitely don't think that's good for his health. He's not even a year off of this cardiac event thing, so they're definitely going to have to get some kind of committee soon, maybe like a Paul Heyman, and whoever else you want to bring in on the creative side. Then you can find somebody that's going to be well liked and well respected to be in the talent relations side. Now, maybe Triple H could draw inspiration into like a legend, like an Undertaker or a Mick Foley, something like that, to be the head of talent relations. Now, head of talent relations is a very tough job. You get called by everybody at any given time. Oh, can I get more TV time? Oh, are you guys finally do anything with me? I got an idea. Can we do this? Maybe I can have a character that's like this, and we can have I can fight Charmel or something, like, all these that's what the head of talent relations does. So Triple H is going to have to find someone new to do the head of talent relations, especially because of the cardiac event. But that's what they call it. To me, it seems like a major heart attack that he had only 10 months ago. We almost lost Triple H on that one. So he's definitely going to need to find some kind of balance between getting all this done. At the end of the day, as someone who I've been sitting here watching WWE for 30 years, and even when I was a youngster, I was going back and watching all the tapes of the 10 years before that. It's just, I'm happy. I'm glad that Vince McMahon's finally gone, let alone all the allegations that sound despicable. And it was not far fetched. If you've watched Vince McMahon's entire career on television, the character that he's playing kind of always seemed like he wasn't playing that much of a difference than his real life character. It's just amped up a little bit, but maybe it's not even amped up a little bit. He seems like a scumbag at the end of the day. Just think about all the thousands of allegations and things that we've even seen him do on TV, like making Trish Stratus bark around like a dog in her bra and panties in front of Vince McMahon and his wife on TV. We have also told before that Vince McMahon wanted to do some kind of incestual storyline between him and his daughter Stephanie. Sounds like a former president that just so happens to be friends with Vince McMahon as well. So these guys have some messed up things in their mind. I guess once you make that much money and you're just crapping money, and you've got billion with a B in front of it kind of money, then all you're really that's left to do is, I don't know, allegedly do things like this, want to touch your daughter, find underage things to do, like that just seems like once you've owned the world and you've got all that power, well, now the next step is to do stuff like family members and underage children type thing, allegedly. So Mm, nobody's it was awkward to see the thank you Vince. I get it. He did a lot. People like Gerald Briscoe, who's always been a yes man for Vince McMahon, was blasting people. Oh, how could you celebrate the man that's leaving when he gave you what you guys would have miserable lives without Vince McMahon giving you this world for you to enjoy. Like, go F off, mate. Like, for real. Like, just acting like we would be licking the wall of with lead paint if Vince McMahon was never around. Like, come on, bro. Like, all these allegations, I'm sure we can go back for the entire like last 25 years of allegations, and if only half of them, or if only a quarter of them are true, then he's done enough to get himself condemned in hell for all eternity. Not to bring in religion, but you get what I'm saying. So that at the end of the day is probably a good thing to get him out of here. But at the end, also, I want to watch a better, just selfishly, I want to watch a better television product. So I think the television product since about 2009, 2008 has been dreadful, all the way from when Cena was just able to beat every single person. No matter what happened in WWE, it all led to John Cena. Whether you were the latest up and coming heel that maybe like an Edge that couldn't ever really get past the Cena wall. But even if you were just a babyface tag team, the example I always use as Crime Time, you remember JTG and Chad Gaspard were starting to get over with the crowd. They were starting to get some pretty big reactions. And every time Crime Time came out, this was about, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. Every time Crime Time came out, they would get cheered. Everyone loved them. And guess what happened? Oh, let's put Cena with them so they can have some 6-man tags and Cena can just absorb their entire energy. So these are the things that I've been watching on television now for 15 plus years with WWE, and I'm definitely ready for a change. I'm ready for someone new at top. So at the end of the day, without all the allegations and stuff like that, which I'm sure, like I said, at least half of all the ridiculous things we've heard, I'm probably sure at least half of the allegations are true, allegedly. But just like, yeah, like nothing makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you capitalize and make Crime Time a good team? Why would you have to have them get their soul absorbed and all the power absorbed by Cena? So these are the different things that maybe slowly but surely will create a better WWE environment, not only in backstage, so that like the women don't have to fear being groped and given payments, so that the owner can do whatever they want. And then if you tell the owner, oh, I don't want to go out on TV in my bra and panties and have a bra and panties match, well, then you'll probably be fired. And that's no environment for a company that wants to be entertaining, sports entertainment. None of that is flies with anything that, you can't have that much power over people. And then Vince McMahon had all these people non-union as independent contractors, but yet what's when you are an independent contractor in any other line of work in the world, your benefit of being an independent contractor is the fact that you can go pick and choose when you want to work, who you want to work for, stuff like that. So they had to be independent contractors but under a contract to not do anything outside of WWE, to the point where they weren't even allowed to do like Twitch and stuff like that on their own without WWE's approval. Oh, you want to go get an interview? You better have it approved by WWE. So in the meantime, you're an independent contractor. You're not getting any health care. You're not getting any medical or dental or anything like that. You pay for your own hotels. You pay for your own plane tickets and all that. And sure, even some of the smaller people on the roster, some of the people that have just gotten there, are making a decent amount of money. But of course, when you take into all the travel expenses, all the hotel expenses, and the rental cars, and all these different things, they add up quickly. So WWE's over here crapping money with the billions and with a B in front of it. They're getting Saudi blood money, and they're getting a billion with a B from Fox, a billion with a B from Universal, NBC. So it gets gotten to the point where they don't even care if the people get in the arena or not. They don't care if people watch that television show very much. They know they've got a I don't know, there's at least 1 million people that are always going to be there and always going to watch the television show. They're the brainwashed masses that are the ones that are upset that Vince McMahon's gone. But in the meantime, all my friends that I grew up watching wrestling have all left in the 15, 20 years that's happened. Sure, of course, I'm 36 now, so 20 years ago, we were all becoming adults, coming from like 16 up to like 20. Once people get to 20, they're getting a life of their own. They're finishing college, starting a families. Maybe they already have a child. Maybe they could come back into wrestling a little bit later when their child gets old enough and they get into it themselves. But in the meantime, all my friends left. They all stopped watching wrestling. I remember even past when I graduated high school and college, and I had my friends. We would all get together and pool together our money, because this was when freaking weekly, I mean, a monthly pay-per-view cost $50, and then it was up to like 55, 60 for WrestleMania. So we would all get together, pool our money, so that like none of us had to pay like $60. We could all pay like 10 a month, and then we would get some beers, some pizza, maybe some chicken wings, have a party for every single pay-per-view. This stopped at a point. It was somewhere around the middle of Cena's reign, where everyone just had a freaking enough of wrestling. So the fact that everyone thinks of wrestling, when the mainstream thinks of wrestling, they think of WWE, and it's been this way. I'm talking all the way back 15 years ago. They were the only, like, if they weren't good and people didn't like WWE, they stopped watching wrestling altogether. So I now have like no friends in my real life that like wrestling. Of course, I have a lot of sports loving friends, and those are the exact fans that left, because Cena and other people like that with a big old capital F fake, and they reminded everyone that what you're watching is fake, and that when you've also got UFC coming up, all those friends of mine went over to watch UFC only. I mean, they still watch football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all that stuff, soccer, but Yeah, all my wrestling fans, they went over to UFC, and not just because it's real. It's because WWE became ridiculous, and it's became this whole, if you don't like John Cena, you're screwed. And then if you didn't really like the suffering succotash promos and this weird Roman Reigns guy, well, then you were screwed as well. And it's like, oh, nothing's ever gonna change, is it? Vince is just gonna find the next golden boy that he can. And I get it. Like Cena, it worked. It fooled all the masses, all the gullible people into believing, oh, well, look at this guy. He never loses, and he's the greatest. And look at him. He's pretty funny when he comes out. He says these nuts and stuff like that. Remember when he was a rapper? All those raps were cool. Hey, look at this guy. He's big and buff, and oh wow, how could you boo John Cena? Look at all he's doing for all the sick children and the wounded troops. You're just being gullible. You're buying into every propaganda line that WWE is throwing at you. They never have John Cena lose clean. They never had John Cena do anything that be compromising to, oh, he's a golden god, that's someone you should be worshiping at the feet of. And they destroyed everything else on the roster just to make sure their golden goose was over so that they can have all the kids, okay, mom, can I get the new t-shirt every single 2 or 3 months, so that they can buy the new t-shirt with the matching wristbands and maybe even the sneakers, some of the more high-end $100 merchandise items. In the meantime, all the gullible fans were like, oh, John Cena, the greatest of all time, and blah blah blah. And it even worked to like people like me for a certain extent. I was going to these shows and I was losing my voice, booing, saying you can't wrestle to John Cena, and booing him and cheering for Kurt Angle at the beginning in 2006, and all the way up to, I don't know, I stopped going to shows somewhere around 2010. I just had enough of it. I was done trying to, hoping and praying for a change. Nothing was ever going to change. And it looked like, at fast forward 10, 12 more years to now, and I was like, oh, nothing's really ever changed. Nothing's going to change. We had this whole, in that 12-year span, this NXT thing, this side journey of NXT, and it was great. And I don't know how this thing was underneath the umbrella of WWE for so long without Vince McMahon getting his fingerprints all over it. Well, eventually, yep, Vince McMahon got his fingerprints all over it and then blamed Triple H for it. So it's just ridiculous. At the end of the day, I'm very glad Vince McMahon's gone. And if it wasn't even, and not even just for the allegation stuff, but for the creative side, I'm selfishly want to watch a better television show. And the only reason I still watch WWE is because they get all the best talent, not like the best talent, but you know what I mean. They've got some of my favorite wrestlers on the roster currently of all time, like Edge and AJ Styles, but even some of the younger guys as well, like a Seth Rollins and I don't know, Cameron Grimes and stuff like that. So um it's tricky. I know some people might even um stop watching because they're like so mad that Vince has been forced out. And I'm sure those are the same people that were cheering on July 6th a couple years ago during the insurrection. So I'm sure those are the exact same people. Anyway, that was of course the biggest news. That's some of the biggest news that's dropped in ever since WCW has been bought. I'm pretty sure Vince McMahon leaving this week is the biggest news in wrestling since WCW was bought out. Sure, you can maybe say like All Out, the creation of AEW, a couple other things along the way. New Japan becoming big in America, launching NJPW World, but nothing compares to Vince McMahon leaving here. Um, he leaves behind a legacy that's tarnished for sure. And I think we've only hit the iceberg of the allegations and things that are going to come out. It's only been 1 week, and we've already got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork who would have been scared in the past. Because don't forget, even once you're long gone from WWE, if you want that Hall of Fame, if you want the accolades, if you want to see the fans, if you want to show up at WrestleMania and maybe have something, you have to kiss Vince McMahon's ass, even if you're already been gone. So it's been 1 week since Vince has been gone. We've been hearing people saying like, "Oh yeah, this used to happen, and this is this," and I mean, you can't believe every single thing you read or see or watch, but it starts to add up, and it comes to the point where, okay, if even only 1 or 2% of all this laundry list of things is true, then it's still a ridiculous enough to get you condemned to hell for all of eternity and all that kind of stuff. So um, I'm not going to spend the whole time talking about Vince McMahon, but clearly that was the biggest news of the week. The couple trickle down effects coming out of that news was Brock Lesnar got to the arena at SmackDown where he was supposed to be scheduled to appear on that week's show. And of course, we've got SummerSlam and only 1 day away. SummerSlam is tomorrow. And so that was 8 days away from SummerSlam where Brock was in the main event. He just walked out. He walked out of SmackDown. We don't know where he went, if he was sitting in the parking lot or, as Joe Negron on Smart Wrestling Fan podcast said, Brock Lesnar was sitting at Jimmy John's waiting for the call to get more money, which I'm sure is what happened. Brock probably got himself another million or two. Brock, we need you. All right, well, how much how much are you willing to throw down to need me? So that's probably why that happened. At the end of SmackDown last week, Brock Lesnar did come out. He was supposed to start the show, but then he left the arena and came back before the end of the show. So good thing too, because as much as I'm not looking forward to Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, they were on the phone to Goldberg, who's the reports before, like a week before that, were coming out that Goldberg's saying in good shape, and he's sitting by his phone every day waiting for that call for his next WWE match. So he got that call. Goldberg was the backup plan, but thankfully Brock Lesnar came back. So it will be Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns tomorrow night at SummerSlam in the main event. And I mean, I'm not looking forward to it. We'll see if Theory cashes in the briefcase or anything like that. I'm sure he will, and I'm sure that he'll fail. It seems like Theory's already getting beat up a lot more because he was a Vince McMahon boy on the screen and off the screen. So I'm not quite sure how much of a boy he was with Triple H, although he was in the way in NXT with Triple H's boy, Johnny Gargano. So speaking of Johnny Gargano, they've now written off one of the one of the two matches I was looking forward to the most at Survivor Series, SummerSlam, was, of course, Bianca and Becky, which I was a little scared of because Bianca might just win that match in 25 seconds to avenge the loss from last year. So I was already a little scared that one of the two matches I was really looking forward to at SummerSlam was going to only last 25 seconds. And sure, that fits the story, but I don't care about the story. I want to watch you guys have a great match at a big pay-per-view in front of a stadium crowd, not a 25-second match. So hopefully that doesn't become a 25-second match. And then the other match I was looking forward to out of all these other, like you got Miz versus Logan Paul, who cares? You've got Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar yet again, who cares? You've got Pat McAfee versus Baron Corbin, who cares? Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey, who cares? The only two I was really looking forward to, and I would have looked forward to Usos versus Street Profits a little more, but I said right after right after Money in the Bank, after they had a really, really good match. I loved their match at Money in the Bank. Unfortunately, it just was leading to yet another match at SummerSlam. So just not looking forward to that one, even though it should be decent. But yeah, Seth Rollins versus Riddle. Matt Riddle was supposed to be one of my favorite matches going into this card. It's off the table. They have an injury angle. They had the end of Raw. The very last thing we saw in Raw was a curb stomp from Rollins to Riddle's face onto the steel steps. So they've now said, this match is postponed. So it looks like what's going to happen is yet another, just like WrestleMania, where Seth Rollins is going to have a mystery opponent. And whoa, this time, now that Triple H is in charge, it could be anybody. Of course, everyone's first guess, and mine too, Johnny Football. Not Johnny. Imagine Johnny Manziel coming out there, and he would get so many boos, and then people would be like, who's this guy? But anyway, no, Johnny Wrestling, Johnny Gargano is my pick to be the we don't even know if it's going to be one of these mystery opponent matches yet. I don't think it's been confirmed. We'll might probably hear something about it on SmackDown. But yeah, I think we'll get Johnny Gargano on Survivor. Why do I keep saying that? SummerSlam tomorrow night. Should be pretty good. And then we're only about 5 weeks away from the big UK getting their first pay-per-view in about 30 years. So that we got a couple big things coming up in WWE. There wasn't a ton of changes yet as far as the things like Vince McMahon isms, but some small things were happening, like even on SmackDown. we had mentions of IWGP tag titles and ROH tag titles as far as talking about the Viking Raiders past. That's something you never get under Vince McMahon, is when you talk about people's past accolades in different wrestling companies. Remember, they even treated like Cody Rhodes as if, oh, Cody Rhodes, you've been gone for 7 years. What the heck have you been doing? How are you still good at wrestling? Because of course you never wrestled anywhere else for 7 years, right? Like ridiculous stuff like that. But we've also been hearing different things. I think I heard Michael Cole say the word fan instead of WWE Universe, and stuff, little small things like that. We've been getting. So like Raw didn't really seem too much different than what it would have been, but that's smart because you just got SummerSlam this weekend. And Raw, even though the whole script probably wasn't written out, it was probably mostly prepared for what was going to happen. It did seem like Edge was supposed to show up at Madison Square Garden, but then they told Edge to stay home or whatever. They didn't need him for that night. And I'm not quite sure what's going on with that, but I am assuming that then we'll see Edge at SummerSlam, and maybe whatever Edge was going to do, they've now changed it to something else. And you never know. So maybe Edge is just going to go back to the Judgment Day or something like that, or form a new stable with different people, like a Ciampa, and they could have a feuding faction against the Judgment Day. Maybe the Judgment Day gets Dominic, but then Edge's new faction gets Ray or something like that. So we'll have to just wait and see. The most important thing is for us fans is that we can now see light at the end of the tunnel, as far as it never looked like Vince was ever going to leave. It never looked like Vince was ever going to pass away. He was going to die in the job in 30 more years when he's 100 years old. It just seemed like it was always going to be that way. And maybe I would pass before Vince McMahon ever lost power in WWE. But no, here we are. Triple H, Stephanie are in power, and Nick Khan as well. So if you guys are wondering, Nick Khan is not related to Tony Khan, although that would be a hilarious development if Tony Khan had like a mole inside of WWE and took over. There's a few other news and notes throughout the week, but I think we spent enough time on the news. So if I'll think of anything while we're going through all the events and stuff, then I'll talk about it then. But this is the time of the week where we go through what happened. I put up all these reviews you can find on the page. I think I did about between 20 and 25 reviews this whole entire last week, and between G1 and stuff like that. Like each event of New Japan, I put out not only a review video, but then a videos highlighting what was happening in all the backstage segments. So like all the promos, that's where you get all your storylines in New Japan. You get a little bit of storylines out there when they're wrestling, but mostly it's treated like a sport when they're wrestling and stuff like that. Then you get backstage, and that's when you get all the backstage interviews and stuff. So this is what I like to do on all these podcasts. This is the main reason that I don't put these podcasts up on YouTube. I mean, only on YouTube. I don't put them on like Podbean or anything like that, Spotify, because I like to have the visual representation here. So let's get into this. This is the segment where all the wrestling shows that I review each week, we then go through it quickly on the results and maybe a quick thoughts. But each show that I'm talking about today, you can find a separate review for on my channel. So just give me a subscribe. I've got the homepage of my channel sorted out so that like WWE is in a separate section, AEW is in a separate section, New Japan, so on and so forth. So let's just start. It goes from Friday to Friday every week, since I do these weekly podcasts on Friday afternoon. So we'll start with SmackDown. That was the first show that happened since my last podcast. And of course, this was only about 4 hours after Vince McMahon stepped down. So in a dark match, this must have been pretty good. Drew Gulak and Ricochet defeating Los Lotharios. That was not on TV. But what was on TV, we saw Ludwig Kaiser defeat Shinsuke Nakamura with help from Gunther. This match wasn't that great. It got a 6.0 out of 10 based on 31 fan votes here. It wasn't too bad, but it wasn't too good either. And the whole ending, I don't mind like cheating endings. You need like cheating and disqualification and count out type things to move stories along and stuff like that. My problem was Gunther barely got a good punch on Nakamura, and that was supposed to be what made Nakamura lose. So a little bit botched ending on that one, in my opinion. Viking Raiders defeating Jinder Mahal and Shanky in a minute and a half. That's surprising. But it's pretty much confirmed Jinder Mahal is a babyface now, which is totally awkward, and he's lost his cool music. So one of the only things Jinder Mahal had going for him was his really cool like Indian rap music, but that's gone for some generic like um hip hop instrumental type. I guess it's for Shanky to dance to. I have no idea, but maybe it's Shanky's music going forward, and Jinder will keep his if he ever goes single again. So Raquel Rodriguez defeating Sonya Deville. I was a little excited for when this match was started announced, but again, no 3-minute 40-second match is ever going to be good. It's not even possible for it to get going in that amount of time. You can have a good flurry in that 3-minute span, but I'm never going to sit here and say it was a good match. And the main event from SmackDown was Madcap Moss and the Street Profits defeating Theory and the Usos. That one was interesting. I wonder how Roman Reigns felt about the Usos teaming with Theory, but what Paul Heyman was trying to get across that they're trying to take out Theory during this match, but they didn't really. I mean, they didn't do that. They could have just absolutely destroyed Theory, but they didn't. So Theory's basically got everyone in the entire company coming after him, including Dolph Ziggler keeps costing him wins on Raw. So I'm pretty sure the story is going to be Dolph Ziggler helps Theory out going forward. So in a dark match, it was a street fight, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. So they have a good old-fashioned Donnybrook Shillelagh's only match coming up tonight for the number one contendership on SmackDown. And they get their title match at that Clash of the Castle, the first European pay-per-view in over 30 years. So that's going to be a pretty big match. We had the debut segment of what's it called? The debut of Shillelagh's and Shenanigans, the new talk show segment by Sheamus. I doubt that we'll ever see it again, but I guess that's out in the ether now. One thing of note was they were in Boston and they did not have Ronda Rousey go out because this was Sasha Banks' country, and everybody knows that Ronda basically took Sasha's spot by winning the Royal Rumble, being in the main event of WrestleMania and stuff like that. If you had any doubts about that, go back to when Charlotte, before WrestleMania, Charlotte was saying, no, I wanted to fight Sasha Banks. That's not just a throwaway line of Sasha trying to be a heel. I mean, a chicken, running away from the competition. No, that's actually what it was supposed to be before Ronda came in and had one of the worst runs of any wrestler, one of the worst returns of any wrestler I've ever seen is Ronda Rousey. Meantime, it deprived of Sasha Banks, one of the best wrestlers in the world, and Naomi, who was having a career year, one of her best years of her career, both gone. So now that Triple H is back, maybe we can get Sasha Banks back. But at this point, I've been saying it over and over. I want Sasha Banks to start her own wrestling company, have somebody with some money step up and help Sasha fund a women's only wrestling company, get them 2 hours of live TV every single week, have WWE and AEW disband their women's division because they don't treat their women's division with respect anyway. So why even have it? Disband your women's division so that we can have all the WWE people, all the AEW people, all the independent, some people from Japan, all kinds of women go to one company that has a 2-hour show, and that would be amazing. But until that time, women's wrestling in America is still kind of held down. But like I said, we can see some light at the end of the tunnel now in WWE as far as um Vince McMahon's gone. We know for a fact that Triple H enjoys women's wrestling. He treated Bailey and Sasha Banks as like daughters of his. Stephanie and Triple H have multiple daughters together, so they have an understanding of what it's like for women and stuff like that. So let's get into the G1 now. Break out of all the WWE talk for a little bit, and we'll get into G1. We were on night 4 last Saturday, so this was about the second week of G1 action. Pretty good week, and no real reason to go through all the preliminary tag matches, but just know that I review every single one of these shows, and then I do a separate video for all the backstage comments, and a lot of the backstage comments have to do with all these stuff. So you get stuff going forward and stuff. So anyway, in the block matches here, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Aaron Henare, definitely one of my favorite matches of the week. Definitely go find this one. It was a great style clash of like a big beefy striker versus a small, lengthy submission type guy. Really fun to watch. That got a 4 stars out of 5 from Uncle Dave and a 7.26 out of 10 from the fans. This one, Shingo Takagi versus Yoshihashi, was also very good. Yoshihashi has definitely improved from the point where everybody used to make fun of him for being one of the worst wrestlers on New Japan. He's definitely, now that he's like 36, about to turn 40, really turned into his own. So Yoshihashi, shout out to him. Shingo Takagi, another guy that's 40 years old. So these two did train, but they then converged in their careers for like almost 20 years after that point when they trained together at the beginning of their careers. So this one got a 4.5 and 3/4 stars from Uncle Dave and 8.34, which almost got the match of the night, but Jay White defeating Tomohiro Ishii in the main event, a little bit higher on the fan votes, and the exact same rating from Uncle Dave. So Jay White continues to be great in all of his matches. He's like the king of the storytelling match. So if you hate slow pace with lots of story matches, Jay White's not going to be for you. But you know how a lot of people say like, oh, Zack Sabre Jr. and versus Bryan Danielson, it would be the dream match for technical wrestling. Well, if we're talking about storytelling wrestling, my dream match right now, currently the two best storytelling, slow pace, tell a great story match would be Jay White versus CM Punk. That would be the ultimate slow prodding, tons of story, but still entertaining. You know what I mean? I didn't mean boring by slow and prodding. Some people find that boring though, and they can't see the bigger picture of what's going on. Those are the same people that probably had 17 John Cena shirts in their career. I mean, in their lifetime. So anyway, definitely some good matches on this show. I would recommend those three for sure. You can definitely skip any Toru Yano match anytime ever. Some good stuff so far on that show. It got a little bit worse as we went, but we got bunch of candidates for match of the week over here at ROH Death Before Dishonor. You can find this as well on my YouTube my YouTube channel. I reviewed this one. So this is the pre-show. Colt Cabana got to be on the pre-show for 2 ROH pay-per-views in a row. We have not seen Colt Cabana on AEW whatsoever. The reports were that Colt Cabana wanted to leave, and it seemed as though maybe it had something to do with CM Punk coming in and their estranged friendship, former best friends turned enemies. Colt Cabana got sued because of the whole podcast with CM Punk that everybody listened to on Thanksgiving morning in 2014. But that's unfortunate, but everybody wanted Colt Cabana to stay, so they said, why don't you go to ROH instead? So he defeated Anthony Henry. That was a pretty good match. A new stable helmed by Arya Davari, now going by Ari Davari, is the Truth Busters. So he said on July 4th his Trust Busters. I don't know if I said truth. I keep saying Truth Busters, but Trust Busters is their name because it's Ari Davari had his trust fund kick in on July 4th. So now he's scouting the world for contracts to buy out to start his own stable. So Slim J is a guy that hasn't been in the big leagues for most of his career, but is an innovator. He's got been around for about 20 years and really hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves for sure. So cool to see him here in ROH. It looks like he'll be part of Ari Davari's faction going forward. They defeated Shinobi Shadow Squad, which was Cheeseburger, one of the biggest cult favorites in ROH history, and Eli Isom. So that was a pretty good match as well. Uncle Dave only gave that one a 1 3/4 star. Wow. So anyway, the Embassy, which is Brian Cage, Khan, and Tewa Leone, you might be asking yourself, well, weren't they called Tully Blanchard Enterprises? Yeah, well, they were, but Tully Blanchard is gone from the ROH. In comes Prince Nana. He bought all the contracts. If you know Prince Nana from ROH's past, you know that's a big upgrade. Tully Blanchard being in ROH was always going to be an awkward fit. Now we get Prince Nana back, and the Embassy's back with him. So they defeated a really great trios team of Alex Zane, Blake Christian, and Tony Deppen. Pretty fun match, that one. And then Willow Nightingale versus Allison Kay, formerly known as Sienna in Impact Wrestling. This one didn't click for me. I was excited for this match coming into it, but a little too many botches for me. And it just didn't click. I didn't like that match very much. So then we get to the main card, and we started with a ROH World Title match, and there's a World Title change. So Jonathan Gresham, in only 11 and a half minutes, got defeated by Claudio Castagnoli. A lot of people were thinking that was weird. I didn't quite think the part that it ended so weird was weird, or I mean, ended so early was weird. But I did think it was weird that Jonathan Gresham came out with no octopus mask, no foundation flag. I didn't see Prince Nana come out with them, but like halfway through the match, there's Prince Nana on the ring side. So it seemed like Gresham didn't want any thing to do with Prince Nana. He didn't want anything to do with this match per se. Gresham did have a good match for what it was worth, and he shook Claudio's hand afterward. Claudio hugged Gresham, but then the reports came out that Jonathan Gresham has cussed out Tony Khan and wants released from his contract. So if you're not familiar, Jonathan Gresham held the ROH. He was the last one to hold the ROH World Title when ROH basically went out of business. So Jonathan Gresham defended the ROH title all over the world, basically keeping ROH alive by completely entirely on his own. There was a couple other people like Josh Woods was defending the Pure title and other, but you know what I mean. Like one of the things that was keeping ROH's name alive while they were basically dead and buried was Jonathan Gresham going out and defending. Oh, any like show you're at, here's a big ROH World Title match, and here's the champion Jonathan Gresham. That really keeps the name alive, the spirit alive, so that it wasn't completely dead and have to be brought back without anything. So, Jonathan Gresham doing all that, then he had to turn heel and join Tully Blanchard Enterprises. Really awkwardly in the countdown show, Jonathan Gresham had to say stuff like, "I was trying to do it my way, but then." Only a fool does things over and over expecting a different result. So now I'm going to do things the Tully Blanchard way. And it just seems so awkward to hear Jonathan Gresham say that. So I get it. I understand that maybe Gresham didn't want to do things felt like he didn't want to, or you know what I'm trying to say. But also there was a little bit of Jonathan Gresham saying, well, you got white guy A and white guy B over here. They're allowed to have no gimmicks, and just their only gimmick is they're a good pro wrestler. But why does the black guy have to have some kind of gimmick on top of it? Why can't I just be a good wrestler too? So there was a little bit of that as well. As far as I think Jonathan Gresham's still signed to his contract, but hopefully Tony Khan can let him go, or they can come to an agreement to um, go forward. So a little awkward on that one, but shout out to Claudio Castagnoli, formerly known as Cesaro, for winning his first major world title. He had the PWG world title and I think something else before as well, but no offense to them, I wouldn't count them as a major world title. ROH at least has some good history here, but defended all over the world. I'm pretty sure ROH world title's been on Wrestle Kingdom and stuff like that. So anyway, the next match, Dalton Castle and the boys, who now have names, Brandon and Brent. Maybe they'll graduate to last names eventually, but they got a big title win here against the Righteous, Bateman, Dutch, and Vincent, winning the ROH six-man tag team titles. So that kind of tells me maybe the Righteous won't be invited back to ROH, and that they just had to come in to drop the belts. Especially with like Vincent. I know Vincent's basically doing a ton of work right now in Impact Wrestling. And there's still somewhat of a working agreement between AEW and Impact, but it's definitely exchanged from all the stuff with the apparently TNA and Impact didn't quite like the stuff that happened with Kenny Omega. I don't know why. I mean, but whatever. In a really good match, Wheeler Yuta successfully defended his pure title against Daniel Garcia. Another really good match here, and the right thing happened because Daniel Garcia was going to destroy the pure title with a sledgehammer, just like the Jericho Appreciation Society did to wait, no, that was just Sammy Guevara and Frankie Kazarian, but you know what I mean. When they destroyed the TNT title, I didn't want to see the pure title destroyed. So that was a good thing. Roosh defeats his younger brother, Dragon Lee, and got himself an AEW world title shot out of this win, because that put him at 10 wins in a row. So that was pretty cool. Really great match between two brothers. Great chemistry. Great stuff there. Mercedes Martinez defeated Serena Deeb. That was a surprising one. Really good match, though. I thought Deeb was going to get out of there with the win, but she did not. I don't know what their plans are with Deeb, but Deeb's one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time. Currently one of the hottest wrestlers in the world. I don't understand it. So maybe they've got something else planned for Serena Deeb, but now Serena Deeb's lost two big singles title matches in pay-per-views. So she was at Double or Nothing, losing to um, Thunder Rosa, and then she loses the Mercedes Martinez here. So I'm not quite sure what they're doing with Serena Deeb. You don't have to have a title to be good, as long as they just have something planned for it, and we don't go a month or month and a half, 2 months without seeing Serena Deeb do anything. That would be terrible because she's super hot right now. So a really good match again with Samoa Joe versus Jay Lethal. It had so much history behind it. Jay Lethal being the former protege of Samoa Joe. Really good stuff there. And then an amazing main event, almost 45 minutes long, 2 out of 3 falls, FTR defeating the Briscoes. And that was I thought maybe the Briscoes were going to win so that they could set up a third match down the line, but no, the Briscoes probably made the decision on their own and said you have to have FTR win. They're the much younger team. They've got more left in the tank. The Briscoes have already made a great name for themselves, and I'm sure they'll do more in the future, but they didn't need this win here. FTR just solidifying themselves as the current best tag team in the world. So, and I hope FTR can make it the World Tag League in New Japan. That would be amazing. So that was a pretty good show for Death Before Dishonor. I thought it was a great show. I really enjoyed watching it. I was a great way to spend my Saturday, last Saturday, and stuff like that. So definitely check out some of these matches. I would recommend Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia for all you people of technical wrestling. You have to watch by far the match of the week is FTR Briscoes. You have to watch this one. I would recommend if you missed the first match they had at Super Card of Honor, watch that one first, and then watch this one as well. So it's a great series of matches. So maybe we'll get a trilogy out of this at some point, but maybe not, because the Briscoes putting over FTR solidly here. So we might not get any more. That might have been the last one, but I'll be excited to see where both teams go from here. Who's FTR going to fight at All Out? Is it going to be Swerve in Our Glory? Is it going to be the Young Bucks? Someone completely different? So I'm not quite sure. It should be good though. We've had a lot of weird things happening over in the NWA, of course, buried under all the other news this week. So just real quickly, this match was awesome. Caprice Coleman just looking like a star. Joe Alonso looked all right as well, but Caprice Coleman on NWA USA had a really good match. Mercurio, he's got a funny gimmick, so that was kind of nothing. But Kerry Morton, the son of Ricky Morton, defeating Colby Carino, the son of Steve Carino. So that was a pretty good match to end the week of NWA. But the big thing coming out of NWA is the fact that there's all these it blew up on the internet and social media, and all the wrestling people were talking about it. And it was that there is problems between Nick Aldis and the owner of NWA, Billy Corgan. So I have not watched this week's episode yet because I try to do those together. Power is the main show, and then USA is the Saturday morning show. I try to watch those back to back on Saturdays. Then I put out a review for both. So I have not watched this week's NWA Power as of yet, but last week's was pretty epic. And it ended with Nick Aldis winning the chase for race to the chase 4-way match, earning him a title shot at the next big pay-per-view, which is in August at St. Louis, called NWA 74, the 74th anniversary. So Nick Aldis defeated Mike Knox, Brian Myers, and Tom Ladmore, formerly known as Bram. And Nick Aldis, if you're not unsure, or if you've been living under a rock and don't know who Nick Aldis is, that's formerly known as Magnus. And Nick Aldis has basically resurrected the NWA through some great matches and getting even people like former NWA champions from the past back into the program, talking about how great Nick Aldis has been. So now Nick Aldis, I'm pretty dang sure. So a lot of these wrestling outlets and media and whatnot were reporting on this as if it was real and all that stuff. But that tells me they are not watching the NWA product. Billy Corgan has been setting this up for a while now, that it looks like Billy Corgan has been crooked or something along those lines. It all happened. It all started when Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, who was the NWA champion, got injured for real. He's going to have to be out for about 6 months or something like that. So then that started this whole storyline of Billy Corgan taking the title off of Matt Cardona, of course, because he was going to be gone for 6 months. But apparently, like, he had to cut a deal with Cardona to get the title off of him. So I don't know why he couldn't just strip him, but that's the whole story here. But at the end of the day, now Nick Aldis is noticing all these different things that Billy Corgan is doing. And then Billy Corgan had a big speech in the last episode before Nick Aldis even won the #1 contendership, where Billy Corgan was saying that he has the right at any time that if he feels that a wrestler isn't um, representing the NWA in the fashion that he sees fit, he can take away anybody's #1 contendership at any time. So that's what's happened. Nick Aldis has been removed from, and I don't know where this has happened. I haven't seen it on TV yet, but it blew up all over social media. It might have happened on the Powerrr episode that came out Tuesday, but it doesn't come out until today on YouTube. But anyway, Tyrus, the Funkasaurus himself, Tyrus, is replacing Nick Aldis in the main event. The fight, it was going to be Trevor Murdoch to begin with. So the Funkasaurus versus one of the redneck whirling dervish from Raw Tag Team Past. Like, that's such a weird main event. And I was fine with Nick Aldis versus Trevor Murdoch. Trevor Murdoch is the current NWA champion. He won the vacated title at the last pay-per-view, Always Ready, when Cardona had to drop it. But Nick Aldis is the clear like #1 guy here in NWA. And now the wrestling media basically reported as if this was real, but that's because they are not watching the product. This is not real. It's totally a storyline. And like, just watch the product. That's all I have to say about it. So we'll just have to see where it goes. There was a couple other good matches on this one, including Max the Impaler, Ella Envy, and Taya Valkyrie having a three-way match. It looks like Max the Impaler is now going to be aligned with Father James Mitchell, and I cannot wait for Max the Impaler and Gags the Gimp to have a segment together. They're both under the sinister minister, Father James Mitchell. So another good match on last week's Power was La Rebellion, which is Bestia 666, the son of Damien Say, I should say. And you guys might remember Damien from WCW Nitro. He was one of the luchadors that didn't have a mask. He had his face painted instead. So you might remember him. But his son, Bestia, teaming with Mecha Wolf, they've been former NWA tag champions, even in recent history, multiple times. So La Rebellion's great. And then the OGK, which was cool to see the OGK, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, not only on Impact, but over here at NWA as well. So this one was a nothing match, but Jake Dumas is the Magic Man, and he's got his assistant CJ, which is always pretty funny stuff from CJ. So pretty good stuff going on in the NWA. They've got their backstage interviewer, Mae Valentine. She's also probably one of the best backstage interviewers in the world right now. She's very charismatic, looks great. She's got a really great at her job. Everybody seems to have chemistry with her, whether she's talking to the champion or the lowest guy on the totem pole. So shout out to Mae Valentine. She's one of the best backstage interviewers. And there's so many backstage interviewers in wrestling that are just absolutely terrible. And maybe not terrible, but just so bland. And like, when I usually write word for word verbatim, like promos and stuff when I'm doing my reviews, I almost always don't include what the interviewers say because they're always so dry. You could predict what they're going to say before it even comes out of their mouth, kind of deal. So anyway, let's get into night 5 of G1. So this one was Ota Ward, and another good show. Again, we don't really need to go over all the preliminary tag matches, but you can find all my thoughts on these in the reviews. So El Phantasmo defeated Yujiro and left with Peter, which was funny. Pretty good match. Yujiro's been having, I think he's already had 3 matches now, maybe just 2, but in G1. No, Yujiro's definitely had 3, and they've all been pretty decently good. So shout out to Yujiro Takahashi, one of those that everybody kind of rolls their eyes when they see him, but he's definitely no Bad Luck Fale or Toriano, that's for sure. Yujiro can still go. He hit a satellite DDT in his last match against Will Ospreay that looked amazing. So it's kind of like a tornado DDT, but a full 360 revolution around. That was awesome. So my match of the I might have no, it wasn't the match of the night, but it was close to match of the night with Sonata defeating Tai Chi. These two wrestled an all Japan style match, which is where they were trained instead of a New Japan style, which was cool to see different things. And we also got to see Peter and Miho Abe back to back. Which was awesome as well. But Sonata and Tai Chi consider each other brothers. Tai Chi has been saying all kinds of things like you're just gonna stay a mid Carter if you stay with Lij. They don't treat you with respect there, Sonata. Go out on your own or join me or do something or let me help you become the leader of Lij and so that you can get out of the mid card for the rest of your career. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the mid card for the rest of your career. So pretty cool stuff. Storyline between Tai Chi and Sonata. I would not mind them forming a tag team in the future. I wonder what's going to happen with Lij once Naito's done. And there's rumors that Naito could be on his final year of wrestling before retiring and stuff like that. He said in the past that he wants to only wrestle till he's 40, and Naito is now 40. So, Jeff Cobb defeating Bad Luck Fale. The only thing of note in that match was Jeff Cobb hitting a nice looking Tour of the Islands on a giant Bad Luck Fale. But Bad Luck Fale, when he's got a match, it's going to be terrible. So the main event at night 5 was Hiroshi Tanahashi defeating Tetsuya Naito in a really good match. Caught me by surprise. So this one set Naito to 0-2, and when there's only 6 matches in the blocks like there is this year, Naito is going to have to win all his matches to have any chance. There's a possibility Naito wins all 4 of the rest of his matches, and he still doesn't get through. So Naito's back is against the wall. I can, if gun to my head, I would say Naito gets out of this group still by winning the next 4. So Hiroshi Tanahashi getting up there in age as well. We never know when it's going to be the last year of Tanahashi's G1. He's now tied Tenzan for 21 G1s in his career. So I could definitely see Tanahashi doing one more to break the record and then basically retiring from G1, but not retiring. I think Tanahashi is going to be one of those guys that goes until his body absolutely won't let him anymore. And the way that some stem cell treatments are going these days, look at Rey Mysterio and how he has the knees of a 20-year-old after he had the knees of a 50, 60-year-old just about 10 years ago. Now 10 years later, and his knees are fresh like a 20-year-old. So pretty good show on this one. I liked those matches, other than Bad Luck Fale, of course, but there's no reason to harp on that. It's just one of those things. Eventually, I guess we'll stop getting Bad Luck Fale matches, but they'll probably just find someone new. So we'll go to Raw. This was the first ever Triple H Raw, the first ever Raw without Vince McMahon, and they just happened to be in Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world, and the home arena of WWE and Vince McMahon's father, Vince McMahon Senior. So, wow, talk about wild on that. We started the match out with Drew McIntyre, or the night out with Drew McIntyre, just absolutely destroying Theory. This is where I was thinking that maybe Theory is not going to be protected anymore because Vince McMahon seemingly liked Theory a lot. We'll just have to wait and see, though. Pretty good storylines going forward, and it was cool to see Drew McIntyre just out of nowhere show up on Raw. Maybe that tells us that Triple H is going to even more so get rid of the brand split, which I can see benefits to having both, but if you do have a brand split, you have to have it where nobody shows up on the other show, like they have been. You can't have it in the halfway. Anyway, it wasn't that good of a Raw, but it did have a good opening. As soon as Raw started, Miz and Logan Paul were fighting in the ring, so that was a cool start. But then we had like Roman Reigns stuff that wasn't really that exciting and stuff like that. Just the same old, same old. Even though Paul Heyman's amazing, how many times can you hear Paul Heyman try to sell you on Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar before you just stop caring? We've been hearing him sell that match for 7 years now. And it really, like, he had to desperately search for some other way to sell this. And remember, a couple of weeks ago, he said, "Oh yeah, Roman Reigns is gonna put his hand up your ass and pull your heart from out of your ass, Brock." Like, ugh. They've literally exhausted everything to the point where he's now talking about that. So anyway, that one got DQ'd, and then Lashley came out to help out McIntyre. Sheamus helped out Theory reluctantly throughout the match. They showed good stuff where even Sheamus doesn't really like Theory. So literally everyone in the company hates Theory, which is hilarious. It was Rey Mysterio 20th anniversary in WWE celebration night here at Madison Square Garden, and really good speech by Rey Mysterio. You could definitely tell it wasn't scripted. It was just from the heart. They just told him, hey, go out there. You have these couple of bullet points to touch on at a point, but just say whatever you want. And it came across as genuine. Maybe that's the stuff that we can get in the future. That's one of the worst things about wrestling and the WWE in the last like 15 years or so is all the scripted promos, the suffering succotashes, and the, people talking with a voice of things that they would never ever talk about. So, for instance, like a Rhea Ripley, it was talking all kinds of nonsense in the past when she was first joining Judgment Day. And I imagine that if Rhea Ripley then had a promo now, she would be able to just talk from the heart, and it will be way, way, way better. So that's a definite plus. Anyway, this match was also really good. Rey Mysterio, like I just talked about his knees, has been throwing down some of the best matches all of the last month of Raw. Definitely Rey Mysterio, shout out to having some of the best matches in WWE over the last month. He's on Raw every single week. I think he's had two tag team matches against the Judgment Day, and then a singles match against each Damian Priest and Finn Balor. All those have been pretty short, too short for my liking, but they're all been really good. But maybe they were short because we are going to get this match at SummerSlam, Rey Mysterio or the Mysterios versus the Judgment Day, and it'll be no disqualification. So we're guaranteed to have all kinds of shenanigans in that one, but hopefully it's a good match where we can get to see Rey Mysterio have a pretty good match. I really want to see a long match, but one-on-one Finn Balor, Rey Mysterio before Rey ends his career. So Alexa Bliss defeated Doudrop. It looked like they were finally going to do something with Alexa Bliss's character where she talked in the back. She changed her tone at one point. It was like basically said that she wants the winner of Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. Now, Alexa Bliss has not improved in the ring whatsoever. Her matches have been boring as usual. She's got about 5 moves that she hits, and that she's been hitting these same 5 moves for over 5 years. So nothing much there. But what Alexa Bliss is good at is that character work. And what they've had her ever since Alexa Bliss has returned, she's been stripped of her character, and all she has are bad promos and bad matches. Her character work is what she's good at, and they took that away from her. So I don't know what they're thinking. I don't really want to watch Alexa Bliss fight for the championship, but I guess that's what we're going to get. But if it leads to more character work and stuff like that, then I'm all for it, because the current Alexa Bliss with no character, all we're left with is a decently cute woman with bad promo skills and bad wrestling skills. AJ Styles and Dolph Ziggler formed up a team. I think that was the first time they've ever teamed together, and they look like pretty good team together. But I doubt, like I said, I think Dolph Ziggler will turn heel and join up with Theory. But if they wanted to do something like AJ Styles and Dolph Ziggler going forward, that's not a bad tag team either. Maybe put Robert Roode with them, and they could be a trios team that might work. But we'll just have to wait and see. Alpha Academy looked good as usual. Chad Gable continues to get a lot of promo time where he's really good at his promos, a lot of wrestling time where he's really good at his wrestling. The only thing that Chad Gable had going against him was how short he was, but now the guy that hates short people is now gone. Vince McMahon's gone, and Triple H is definitely going to be more willing to give Chad Gable more love in the future. So our main event at Madison Square Garden on Raw was the 20-minute Bloodline versus Riddle and Street Profits match. This was Roman Reigns' first match on Raw since he won the WWE title, the main title that represents Raw. This is Roman Reigns' first match on Raw since then, since he won it at WrestleMania. So nice of you to show up to work, Roman. And this match was really nothing. It was your typical. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the most groundbreaking thing. I wouldn't tell you to go watch it. It was just kind of just setting the just to get us out of this event, get Roman on TV, and set us up for SummerSlam. So SummerSlam looks pretty interesting. We'll preview it after we finish going through all the rest of these stuff. We had NXT 2.0, pretty interesting stuff on there. Alundra Blaze showed up, and she was yelling at what's her name? Cora Jade. So Alundra Blaze was yelling at Cora Jade for putting the title in the trash, bringing up the fact that Alundra Blaze did throw the WWE Women's title in the trash, but she thinks it was a mistake because it took so much longer after that point for women's wrestling to be respected in WWE after that point in time. So pretty decent show overall. Grayson Waller defeated Wes Lee. A pretty good match. Apollo Crews defeated Zion Quinn. Again, Zion Quinn not looking very good in the ring. He's got a good look to him, good at his promos, but needs to develop in the ring. Apollo Crews looks good in the ring as usual, and just needs to keep developing on his character work. So if you combined Apollo Crews and Zion Quinn, you'd have a super, like a championship worthy kind of guy. So hopefully they can both develop on their weaknesses, or that we can just keep hiding their weaknesses. Grayson Waller also looked great against Wesley. Wesley, for all the Wesley fans out there, don't worry. I'm sure he's going to start getting his comeuppance soon. This is twice now Wesley's been costed matches by Trick Williams, and that'll lead to a big match at some point between Trick Williams and Wesley, where, don't worry, I'm sure Wesley's going to get his big win there. So Zoe Stark returned at the previous week's NXT as the surprise entrant and winner of the 20-woman Battle Royal, and that was to become number one contendership. Zoe Stark hurt her knee, tore her MCL and ACL off the bone inside of her knee, and came back in only 8 months. It was supposed to be an over a year out on injury, but Zoe Stark has rehabbed herself all the way to be coming back. She just absolutely destroyed Gigi Dolan in less than 3 minutes, and then that sets up a match with Mandy Rose in a few weeks. And there's a special event called Heat Wave, which is straight out of the ECW playbook, but that's neither here nor there. Giovanni Da Vinci defeated Andre Chase in the match of the night. This match was insane. They actually let Andre Chase wrestle. Uncle Dave even rated it 3.75 stars out of 5. Giovanni Vinci, if you're wondering, is formerly known as Fabian Eichner, and Andre Chase, if you're wondering, formerly known as Harlem Bravado of the Bravado Brothers. Andre Chase has been on NXT 2.0 for a while now, but finally they let him wrestle. So maybe another sign that Triple H has taken over and said, hey, let's have the good wrestlers actually wrestle good on these shows. So that was an awesome match to see. Even in defeat here, Andre Chase looked amazing. Him and his Chase University students and stuff like that. So I've been saying this before, but in case you've missed it, Andre Chase is one of those guys where you could literally have Andre Chase on NXT for the next 8 years and just never call him up, and have a revolving door of different recruits. Every time you got some new rookie or recruit and you really don't know what to do with them, just throw them into Andre Chase University, Chase U, and Andre Chase could be like an ever present person on these NXT shows for like the next decade, where, you know, Bodie Hayward and Thea Hale would eventually graduate out of Chase U, and then whoever else they bring in the next 6 months to a year, Andre Chase would bring those in as the next students. So I think that's something where Andre Chase can find himself a little niche in NXT and just stay there for like a whole decade. And I think Andre Chase would love that opportunity. So Indy Hartwell in the worst match of the night, Ariana Grace is not ready to be on national TV in live matches. She brought Indy Hartwell down to her level, which really showed that Indy Hartwell isn't elite, because even the most elite wrestlers can raise up a really bad wrestler to their level, but an average to above average wrestler gets brought down to a bad wrestler's level because they're not great yet themselves. So Ariana Grace not ready. This is exactly why we have NXT Level Up. There's probably I've got to be one of the only people reviewing NXT Level Up. I've got to be one of only like 20,000 people that watches NXT Level Up, as opposed to 500,000 plus that watch USA Network NXT 2.0. So really good ending of this week. It was the D'Angelo family coming together. I mean, accidentally bringing the Diamond Mine together right when Diamond Mine was about to explode. So there's no telling what might happen next week. Diamond Mine, what might implode. But in the meantime, the D'Angelo family brought Diamond Mine together as they all had to band together to fight someone that was attacking them. So the Creed brothers, Damon Kemp and Roderick Strong, lost to Channing Lorenzo, that Stacks, Cruz del Toro, formerly known as Raul Mendoza, Joaquin Wilde, formerly known as DJ Zima Ion, and Tony D'Angelo, of course. But yeah, when I was talking, I just remembered that one of the things that I wanted to do going forward, when I was kind of talking about how Ariana Grace should be getting her training with less eyeballs on her than 500,000 people who, you know, those 500,000 people that saw Ariana Grace, there might now be 20 to 200 to 300,000 people that think that Ariana Grace is always going to be a bad wrestler. And anytime they see her going forward, they'll think, oh, yeah, it's that Ariana Grace. She's terrible. That's exactly why you don't want rookies wrestling on national TV. Yes, put them on TV on the network, but where only like 30,000 people are going to watch them. And it's going to be people like me that aren't going to like judge them. I'm going to understand, oh, this is only her like 10th match in her entire career. I understand that she's not going to be like Bret Hart out there, like, but a lot of people first impressions are a big thing. So here's my idea. Now that Triple H and Stephanie have come back in, I think it would be perfect to put NXT 2.0 back on the network, back on Peacock, the actual NXT 2.0, take it off of USA and replace NXT 2.0 on USA every week, 2-hour live women's only show. That would be amazing. And there's no way it would get less ratings than NXT 2.0 with their 400, 500,000. It would have to. And then I swear it's going to be so good. It's going to start creating a buzz. There's going to be a fear of missing out from other wrestling fans who are like, oh, I don't like women's wrestling. Why would I want to watch women's wrestling? Blah, blah, blah. They're not athletic. They can't do what the men do. All that kind of stuff. If you give the women a 2-hour live television show where it's ran by like Triple H and Stephanie, so it's not going to be shenanigans. It's going to be just legitimately a 2-hour weekly live wrestling show, women only. You'd have like, maybe you can even bring Sasha Banks back, Naomi. You would have Bailey, Charlotte, Becky, Bianca, and all kinds of other people. You can bring in, like right now in NXT, there's like 30 to 40 women that are all training to become like the next superstars and stuff. I think it would be a perfect time. You then can put NXT back on the network where they should be. At the end of the day, it's the minor leagues, it's the developmental, it's the people that are trying to get ready to come. And some of these people have only had 5, 10, 15, 20 matches in their entire career. Do we really want to put them on live national television where people are going to have first impressions and never like them again? Or can we finally freaking have somewhere other than Japan respect women's wrestling enough and have own like mainstream type women's only events? So replace NXT 2.0 every Tuesday with some kind of, I don't know what you want to call it. We'll call it Evolution for now because that's what the pay-per-view was called. But a women's only 2-hour show live weekly. Oh man, that would instantly make everything better. Instantly. And then you'd had the NXT back on the network / Peacock. You wouldn't necessarily have to have it live 2 hours every week if you don't want to, and stuff like that. I think it'll be easier that way for everybody to develop all the new recruits and stuff like that. So we'll see if anything like that happens. Let's just preview what we're going to get tonight on NXT Level Up. So we will see Javier Bernal versus Miles Bourne, Fallon Henley versus Sol Rucka, which is only second match ever for Sol Rucka. And then our main event is Ikemen Jiro and Quincy Elliott teaming together. They just fought last week, and now they're teaming together to fight Idris Enofe and Malik Blade, two of my favorite guys in NXT. So it looks like a pretty good episode of 205, or not 205 Live, but NXT Level Up tonight. Make sure you come here after my SmackDown review. I will be starting the NXT Level Up review. So let's look and check in what happened Tuesday night in NJPW G1 action. We'll just skip over the in preliminary matches. There was a decent match between Chase Owens and Great O'Khan, and then Evil defeated Kenta in a pretty nothing match. Lance Archer defeated Tom Lawler, and I liked this match. Tom Lawler trying to apply a bunch of holds on the much larger Archer. And then in the main event, many years in the making, formerly known as Finn Juice, the tag team, David Finlay defeating Juice Robinson in David Finlay's biggest match of his career. I mean, the biggest win of his career, getting a win over Juice Robinson here. That match was pretty good. Uncle Dave gave it 4 stars. I would agree with that for sure. And I have the hiccups. Great. Well, let me just quickly move on in case these never go away. And then on Wednesday, I think this was the last G1 show that has happened, but we're only about 15, 16 hours away from G1 kicking off yet again for night 8. So we'll just skip ahead here. Will Ospreay with Yujiro Takahashi. I was talking about that match earlier where Yujiro hit a satellite DDT out of nowhere. This was a really, really good match. Made even better because you weren't expecting much, you know what I mean? And like the worst match ever, Bad Luck Fale defeats Toru Yano, two of the guys that nobody wants to see ever in G1 fighting against each other. Roki Goto versus Aaron Hanari, yet again, amazing match. Do not sleep on Aaron Hanari. I know a lot of people might not like him because he's a bigger guy. He does a lot of striking and stuff like that. Every single singles match that Hanari's had in the last couple months has been amazing. And he's really good in all these preliminary tag matches as well. But Goto also having a career resurgence here, a career year after maybe not quite. It looked like Goto was slowing down the last 3-4 years, but now Goto looks to be focused back on his game, and really good stuff here. Goto goes to 4 points, Hanari goes to 2. And then the main event, I like that match better than the main event, but I understand if people like the main event a little bit better, which pretty much everybody does. They rated it a little bit higher than the Goto Hanari match, but it was Tomohiro Ishii defeating Tama Tonga. Really fun match. Tama Tonga loves to really like have quick paced offense and high impact like flying around moves. Where Tomohiro Ishii just is a tank. He doesn't move around fast. He just hits hard kind of deal. So that was a really fun match and big upset here for Tama Tonga. So if you haven't been listening to my reviews, my whole I assume that when Tama Tonga and Jay White meet at the end of their G1 block, and I'm assuming it'll be winner take all to get to the semifinals between Tama Tonga and Jay White. And I'm assuming Tama Tonga is going to beat Jay White, granting him Tama Tonga that is a world title shot in the future at a big event in the main event. So I think maybe Tama Tonga will go on to maybe get to the finals, have a really good match in the finals. I'm not even sure who he would lose against. Probably Okada, because I think this is Okada's G1 to win. But Tama Tonga would really prove himself if he had three straight amazing matches, one to win the black against Jay White, one whoever against he fights in the semifinals, and then one in the finals where he would probably lose, but this would then set up Tama Tonga with a really big title match against Jay White, who basically kicked him out of Bullet Club and took over and stuff like that. So um I wouldn't give Tama Tonga the world heavyweight title there, but I would make it like a 45-minute match, one of those Jay White specials where it's slow paced and with a lot of story, but then you can have Tama Tonga kick up the pace here and there with he's one of the quickest high impact offense, like, I'm trying to say quickness style, not like high impact, like hard, but like quick. So having that dynamic of the Jay White slow storytelling matches combined with Tama Tonga's quick, and then they already have a built-in rivalry, and they'll be able to work out some kinks and get some chemistry together in this G1 match, which is going to be good in of itself. But then that leads up to maybe in a month or two, I don't know what the next big event is, but have Jay White defend against Tama Tonga, have it be like 45 minutes, and if Tama Tonga does what I think he'll do, which is impress everybody and show everybody that he's worthy of being a main eventer, then maybe next year, somewhere in 2023, Tama Tonga could get the World Heavyweight title, IWGP World Heavyweight title. That's what I would like to see. If Tama Tonga fails to impress or anything like that, then I would agree. Don't give him the title. But if Tama Tonga really, really impresses in these next, I would say give him the big win over Jay White, have him have a really good match in the semis, a really good match in the finals that he loses. So then he would have won 2 of those. And then he would lose, but have a 45-minute match for the title at a big event in a main event in the next couple months. So he would be 2-2 out of those big 4 matches. But out of that 4-match span, we can then take stock to see if he is indeed someone worthy of being a main eventer in the singles competition. I mean, if he fails or whatever, it's not like get rid of him, maybe put him back in the tag team division or stuff like that. Maybe a U.S. title run or stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I think that's something that they could definitely do, and it should be really good. So the only other thing to touch on is Dynamite from this week. Really good episode of Dynamite. One of the more epic. It had so many of those moments that people are going to look back upon in 10 years. Like, oh, that was awesome. So we started the match out. It's going to be a good night when you start with the AEW World Title interim asterisk. But Jon Moxley defeated Rush in about a 13.5-minute match. Really good match here. We saw Andrade El Idolo come out at one point to try and help Moxley, to no avail. Uncle Dave gave this a 4.5 star out of 5, but the general public gave it a 7.74 out of 10. I would agree with that. A pretty good match, though. Really good stuff. I'm glad that Rush is here in AEW. Ricky Starks absolutely destroyed Danhausen in a minute and a half, then had one of the best. So then he called out another person, and one of the most memorable, you'll definitely see this in 20 years' time in all those most memorable moments on Dynamite. It was Hook beating Ricky Starks for his father's FTW title. So great moment there. Hook came out in orange for the first time. Everyone in the building knew what was about to happen, but it didn't change it from being a great moment. Ricky Starks then had one of the best promos of his life, where he talked about how basically he was given the FTW title as he called it a noose, but I turned it into a necktie or a bow tie. He just said tie, but that's the kind of tie he meant. But Ricky Starks had that title, FTW title, for a year now, and really did bring some prestige back to it. So Hook winning his father's title with Taz on the commentary, almost in tears, was a great moment, followed by a great moment right after where Ricky Starks had the promo of his life, and then Powerhouse Hobbs turned on Ricky Starks and left Team Taz. So it looks like Hook and Ricky Starks are cool with each other even after that title change. They'll still be in Team Taz going forward, but Powerhouse Hobbs is out. So the Ricky Starks Powerhouse Hobbs tag team is no more. Sammy Guevara finally had his first singles match since April, and he defeated Dante Martin, who had Sky Blue out there with him. But Sky Blue basically didn't say anything. She didn't do anything. I like that she finally got involved on something other than Dark and Dark Elevation. But man, it was like Sky Blue was literally out there looking bored because they didn't have her do anything. The whole point was Sky Blue was going to help keep Ty Conti at bay, but then Ty Conti cost Dante Martin the match at the end. So it's just kind of ridiculous. But unfortunately, I've heard some news that Dante Martin might have a little bit of an injury after this match. I hope it's not too serious. Dante Martin's just on fire, been on fire for over a year now, and he's only 23 years old. So I want to keep seeing him go. The worst match of the night by far, Swerve Strickland defeating Mark Sterling and Tony Nese. If it was just Swerve and Tony Nese, it would have been fine. But once you put Mark Sterling with his goofy outfit, he's not even a wrestler, stuff like that. So I wish this one would have got a little bit more length, but Thunder Rosa versus Miyu Yamashita was a great match. It was the one I was looking forward to the most. I would have preferred that to be the main event. I guess more people were excited about about Bryan Danielson's return, and that was the main event. But to me, I mean, yeah, it's nice to have Bryan Danielson back, but it's not main event worthy when you've got an AEW World Title and an AEW World Women's Title on the same show. Why is Daniel Bryan's return? I'll never stop saying Daniel Bryan, bro. I don't know why. It's because it's so dang close to the Bryan Danielson. So in my mind, when I'm trying to figure out who to say, I can't even remember which one's the one I'm trying to say. I have both names, Bryan Danielson and Daniel Bryan, in my head, but then I can't even remember. Okay, well, which of those two am I trying to say out loud? So anyway, Daniel Garcia defeated Bryan Danielson by knocking him out in 17.5 minutes. Pretty good match. I would have given this only 10, and I would have given Miyu Yamashita Thunder Rosa 17 minutes in the main event, but neither here nor there. But you wonder why I keep saying, get rid of the AEW women's division, get rid of the WWE women's division, let them have their own company in a 2-hour live television show every single week. Until that happens, you're going to get stuff like this. So, it doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense. What did Daniel Bryan and Daniel Garcia do to deserve being in the main event? Honestly. So, yeah, it was Bryan Danielson's return, but whatever. Nothing to get too ridiculously upset about. Let's just check out, if you don't want spoilers for Rampage. I'm not really spoilers, but as far as who's wrestling, I don't know if all these were announced, but it'll be Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt going up against Best Friends. Chuck Taylor, Trent Brennan, Orange Cassidy. That's going to be an interesting one. They set that story up by basically telling us that Sanjay Dutt's going to cost them the match because he's not good anymore. Ethan Page versus Leon Ruffin, guaranteed to be a really good match, even if it's only like 5-6 minutes. Really going to be good. Matt Sydal versus Lee Moriarty, probably going to see the heel turn of Lee Moriarty. I haven't looked at any of the spoilers or anything, so if I just predicted that, then everyone's going to be like, oh, you spoiled it for me. But no, I never look at spoilers ever, ever, ever. If something's spoiled for me on accident, I'll never talk about it and stuff like that either. But like if it was spoiled for me, you wouldn't have heard me say like, "Oh, I think Lee Moriarty is going to turn heel." I would have just shut up about it the entire thing and say, "Oh yeah, Matt Sydal versus Lee Moriarty tonight." If I do ever have anything spoiled for me, but it looks like in the main event, Ruby Soho making her return from the arm injury. I think she still has the cast on her wrist. I don't even think the injury is real though, so she'll be all right. And she's taking on the first match of Anna Jay as a heel, and she has now joined Jericho Appreciation Society. So that should be an interesting match. Looks like a pretty good episode of Rampage tonight. And real quickly, I'll see if there was anything about what matches are tonight on SmackDown. So usually you can't. The best bet is to look at the WWE.com page or the Twitter page. This one doesn't really give us the best info, but let's check it out anyway before we get going. What's today? July 29th. Why can't I find July 29th? There we go. From Atlanta, Georgia. So the hometown of not only AJ Styles, but Theory. So let's see if Theory has a big thing to play in this. And yeah, we've got 3 matches. Of course, it was in the main event, an old-fashioned Donnybrook match, meaning shillelaghs are legal, but swords are not. Which is just a hilarious statement to say. This is for the WWE title and the WWE Universal title #1 contendership for a chance to main event in Europe for the first time, for the first Europe pay-per-view in over 30 years. So Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre, and that makes sense. Sure, you might groan and say, oh, we've seen this match so many times throughout the years, but it makes sense that Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre would be the #1 contendership match. They're given the chance here for the European guys. So you can say, oh, well, what about Butch, Ridge Holland? Well, they kind of had their chance. What you could say is, well, what about Gunther? But Gunther has the Intercontinental title. So I'm sure we'll finally get, and maybe I hope and pray that we can get Shinsuke versus Gunther at SummerSlam, and we can finally get the Intercontinental title back on. It's been since WrestleMania last year when Big E fought Apollo Crews in a Nigerian drum match since the Intercontinental title has been defended at a pay-per-view, which is ridiculous. So anyway, that's going to be a good main event. Aaliyah versus Lacey Evans, finally, after weeks and weeks of them teasing this match. I'll believe it when I see it. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen yet again. And then this one's been building up for about a month now. Viking Raiders, the new and improved, the new vicious Viking Raiders versus the New Day. So that should be interesting. I'm sure we'll see Jinder and Shanky at some point. Maybe some more developments that'll come out of that. But don't forget, again, it is in Atlanta, Georgia, the hometown of Theory, and I'm sure Theory will be there in all his glory. So that's pretty much it. I'm at about an hour and a half here. I could probably do a little bit more previews for next week and a preview for SummerSlam. I guess we should at least look at the SummerSlam card, huh? So I'll go back to check out what's at SummerSlam, checking out. Let's see what they have officially written down for the Seth Rollins match that was postponed against Riddle, which is unfortunate. I was looking forward to that match almost more than anything else. So we've got Pat McAfee versus Happy Corbin. I like Pat McAfee as a person, as a commentator, as a guy that can get in the crowd, pump up the crowd with with a promo and stuff like that. And his matches aren't bad, but really, I'm not excited at all for Pat McAfee versus Happy Corbin, not even a little bit. And just like the next match, I'm not even excited even a little bit for Miz and Logan Paul. I could care less where the story goes. I could care less who wins. I could care less if Logan Paul has a great match. You know what I'm saying? So 2 celebrity matches there. I don't give one flying F about. The Mysterios versus the Judgment Day, no disqualification match. Going to be a great one. Really looking forward to that one. Liv Morgan versus Ronda Rousey. If Ronda just wins, then the whole story is ridiculous. If Liv wins, then that's pretty cool. So, but again, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not a Liv Morgan fan. I don't think Liv is very good at wrestling. Ronda Rousey hasn't been very good in her since she returned. The only good match she's had was at WrestleMania Backlash. So maybe we'll see the return of Charlotte or something at SummerSlam, or finally the return of Bayley. So you got two people in the wing that could come out at any point here. One of the matches probably the match I'm looking forward to the most is Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. I'm hoping and praying this one doesn't end in 25 seconds. I get that the story kind of tells, or the story would make sense for that being the case, but I don't want to see that. That sounds terrible. I want to see an actual match. So then the Usos and the Street Profits are going to fight yet again. Special referee Jeff Jarrett in his hometown of Nashville, Tennessee. Both Raw and SmackDown titles on the line. I don't know what to expect out of that one. Could be a cool moment if Street Profits win the titles and the crowd cheers loudly. So that could be a cool moment. Bobby Lashley versus Theory for the U.S. title. Theory has the chance to walk out of SummerSlam with 3 of the 4 singles titles. I don't think anybody's ever walked out of one event winning 3 singles titles in one event. That would be a record, and I hope it happens because it's just because it would be so cool. It's not even that I'm the biggest Theory fan or anything like that. I just think it's a good way to kind of blow up the kind of start us anew with the whole Triple H era, and now we can get, like Theory could lose all 3 titles within like a couple days or a week or a month, but just ending SummerSlam with Theory holding up 3 titles and everyone in the crowd booing their lungs out as if the place was about the Riot would be amazing, in my opinion. And maybe you could just have like Dolph Ziggler come out and help Theory accomplish the goal of winning all 3 titles. And then maybe have Dolph Ziggler win the Intercontinental title or something so that they have all 4 of them. So anyway, in the main event, it's Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, last man standing match. This is like the 7th or 8th or 9th time they've had a title match at a pay-per-view in the last 7 years. I wasn't looking forward to the WrestleMania match this year whatsoever, and I'm even less looking forward to this one. Sure, it's got the last man standing match applied to it, but I'm not looking forward to this match at all. I'm the firm believer, if you've seen one Roman Reigns match, you've seen them all. Almost the same could be said about Brock Lesnar. So now that they're fighting yet again, 2 guys that pretty much have the same match every single time they go out there anyway, it's just going to be the same thing over and over and over. So anyway, that's probably not the main event. The main event will probably be Theory cashing in the briefcase against whoever wins that match. And hopefully Theory can win because I'm tired of Roman Reigns as champion for sure. And I would like to start fresh with the new Triple H era. So I'm gonna get going, and I'll be back later with a busy schedule. So just tonight, for example, I'll be reviewing SmackDown, then a separate review for NXT Level Up, and then a separate review for AEW Rampage, and then later on that night I'll be doing New Japan G1. So I've got 4 different events to cover until I go to bed at about 8:30 a.m. I can't remember exactly when the G1 starts tonight, but probably 5:30 Eastern. So I've got a little bit of time. I don't have to work today, so I'm gonna also stream on WWE 2K Universe mode. So come check that out. I'll be doing that up until for the next few hours here. So thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys again next time. And hopefully, I'm sure more giant news is going to drop right after I release this podcast. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.